The group, consisting of Daniel, Mia, Jake, and Lily, decided to go camping at Cursed Lake, a peaceful and remote spot far from the city. Before heading out, they stopped at a nearby village to buy camping supplies. The villagers all warned them about strange occurrences around the lake, but the group brushed it off as superstitious stories. If you want to live, never go near the lake at night, an old man said in a hoarse voice. That place holds not just water, but souls calling for you. The group laughed it off, unaware that they would soon face a horrifying truth. After a long day of hiking, the group finally arrived at Cursed Lake. The scenery around the lake was beautiful, with its calm waters reflecting the blue sky and surrounding trees. However, as they began setting up their tents, a cold gust of wind suddenly swept through, causing the leaves to rustle as if whispering something. Mia felt an unsettling sensation. Does anyone else feel strange? She asked. Everything is too quiet. The group exchanged glances, but no one said anything. They decided to continue setting up camp and tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. As night fell, the group sat around the campfire, enjoying food and talking. But as the night grew deeper, strange noises began to echo from the lake. A soft whistling sound, like bird wings. But no one could see anything. Jake and Daniel decided to take a walk around the lake. But as they got closer to the water's edge, they noticed strange marks on the ground. It seemed like someone had walked nearby, but there were no clear footprints. They suddenly disappeared, as if they had never existed. The next morning, when the group woke up, they found that Daniel was gone. His tent was still intact, but there were no signs of him having left. They searched the surrounding area, calling out for Daniel, but there was no answer. The marks they had found the night before were also gone. Everything seemed to have been erased. In each of them, a sense of fear began to rise. Mia began to recall the warnings from the villagers, but she didn't want to believe the stories. Daniel couldn't just vanish because of a breeze. Mia whispered. After discovering that Daniel was missing, the group felt more fearful than ever. Though they searched the entire surrounding area, there was no trace of Daniel, as if he had never existed there. His tent was still intact, his belongings untouched, but there was no explanation for his disappearance. We need to leave immediately, Mia said. But she knew that leaving wasn't an easy choice. Every time they wanted to leave, a feeling like something was pulling them back kept them from moving forward. The group decided to continue searching through the forest, hoping to find a clue as to where Daniel might be. As they walked along the lake's edge, they discovered strange marks on the ground, large, faint footprints, as if someone had passed by, but without leaving clear footprints. How can there be marks but no clear footprints? Jake asked. His eyes filled with doubt. The group continued following the marks, and soon they arrived at a strange area where ancient trees were arranged in a circle. The whispers returned, echoing in their minds. As they neared the circle of ancient trees, an unsettling feeling filled the air. These trees were unlike the others in the forest, taller, with glossy bark, as if nurtured by some invisible force. Mia felt an inexplicable urge to step into the circle, although she couldn't explain why. None of us should go in there, Emily said. But her eyes were also drawn toward the circle. Eventually, Mia was the first to step inside, and immediately, the space around them began to shift. As Mia stepped in, everything around them began to shift. The ancient trees started to glow faintly, and the ground trembled as if an underground wave was sweeping through the forest. The group stood frozen, unable to move, as if held in another world. The whispers grew louder, and a familiar voice echoed through the space. Sarah, Mia, Jake. You are too late. The voice chuckled softly, then abruptly fell silent. The voice wasn't Olivia's, but something larger, more powerful, and seemingly the true source of the disappearances around Cursed Lake. Cursed Lake is the birthplace of souls, and those who trespass upon it must pay the price. The voice continued. There's only one way for you to escape. The group began to understand what they had to do to free themselves, but the cost would be steep. Olivia hadn't just sacrificed herself for them. She had done so to make them realize the truth about the forest. After Mia stepped into the circle of ancient trees, the space around them began to change. The trees seemed to twist. The light slowly faded and was replaced by thick darkness. Suddenly, a wooden door appeared, floating in midair. It was an old door, covered with green moss and ancient marks, as if it didn't belong to this world. Mia felt an odd pull toward the door. She stepped closer, and soft sighs echoed from within. Mia carefully placed her hand on the door. Immediately, it opened silently. As the door widened, a cold gust of wind blew from within, carrying the scent of mildew and damp earth, as if the space beyond the door had been forgotten for decades. Inside was a long, dark corridor, with strange paintings on the walls, depicting creatures that seemed to belong only in mystical tales. Mia felt a strong urge to step inside. Should we go in? Lily asked, but Mia didn't answer. She had already stepped through. Stepping into the corridor, Mia and her friends began to feel the presence of trapped souls more clearly. Ghostly figures drifted by, appearing and disappearing in the darkness, their faces filled with fear and pain. Mia saw the image of Daniel, his face pale and filled with panic. "Daniel," Mia shouted, but Daniel didn't respond. Other souls turned to look at them, their eyes filled with hatred. "Help me. Help me get out of here." A weak voice echoed. Mia felt herself being drawn into another world, where everything seemed controlled. Suddenly, the painting on the wall lit up, illuminating the space around them. In the painting, a strange scene unfolded. A group of people, like them, being hunted by vengeful souls. One of them was dragged into the lake, where the waters churned and instantly disappeared. "This is the story of those who went missing here," Jake whispered. "They were taken by the forest and the cursed lake, and now we're the next ones." The paintings on the wall began to shift, showing images of sacrifice and revenge. Suddenly, laughter echoed through the space. Olivia's familiar voice rang out again. "There's only one way to escape this place. You will have to pay for the souls that have been sacrificed. Mia turned around and saw Olivia standing there. But this time, she wasn't a faint spirit. She was a powerful entity, as if holding immense power. If you want to leave, one of you must replace me. Only then can you go. Olivia continued, her eyes filled with sorrow. Only when you sacrifice a soul can you leave, Olivia said, her voice echoing in the cold space. Her words made the group fall silent. Sarah looked into Olivia's sorrowful eyes, feeling the pain and helplessness in her voice. One soul must replace the souls of those who sacrificed. Olivia continued, you can leave, but one of you must stay behind, paying the price for the lives of others. The group began to panic. They all understood that this wasn't an easy choice. The atmosphere grew heavy, suffocating the group. Sarah, Mia, Jake, and Lily all stood frozen, none of them daring to speak. Olivia, with eyes full of sorrow, turned and added, if you do not comply, the souls cannot find peace, and you will forever be trapped here, unable to return. Her warning weighed heavily on them. The souls around them, including Daniel's, stood silently, watching the group. Sarah felt that each of those souls was part of the forest. Each one was a part of this story. The heavy feeling in the space made every step they took feel burdened. Mia felt the price of life drawing closer, and she looked at Sarah and said, I will do it. I will stay so that you can get out of here. Mia's words left everyone choking with emotion. Jake rushed to hug her, but Mia gently shook her head, her eyes filled with determination. This is my choice. I can't let you die while I'm still alive. I must do this. Mia slowly walked towards the door. I will never forget you all, she whispered. The group stood still. No one could speak. Olivia stood aside, her ethereal eyes looking at Mia with understanding. The souls around them began to quietly fade away, creating a peaceful space. Mia placed her hand on the ancient wooden door and slowly took off the necklace she wore, handing it to Sarah. Keep it, so I will always be with you. At that moment, no one could stop her. Mia stepped through the door, and immediately, light engulfed her. The moment Mia stepped through the door, a powerful burst of light surged, and the space began to change. The midnight forest slowly began to be freed from the haunting curse. The souls began to ascend, and the trees around them blossomed, their leaves turning green once again. Sarah saw the light from the necklace Mia had given her glowing. We've been freed, Sarah whispered. The last souls found peace, and the forest returned to tranquility. As Mia stepped through the door, the group stood frozen. The air around them slowly began to shift. A wave of bright light surged, illuminating the entire midnight forest. The souls began to ascend, as if freed from the forest's grasp. Each soul could feel the relief and peace that had eluded them for so long. Sarah felt a sense of tranquility like never before. She turned to look at the necklace Mia had given her, and a whisper in her heart, Mia has completed her mission. Although the forest had been freed from the curse, the group still couldn't shake the feeling of being haunted. The midnight forest was no longer a place filled with darkness and suffering souls, but it seemed like the freed souls were always following them, reminding them of what had happened. "We did it," Jake said, his voice echoing in the quiet space. "But a part of us will always stay here, with this forest." The group stood there, looking toward the sky, where sunlight began to shine through, and the ancient trees began to revive. When the group turned back to look at the forest, they noticed that everything had changed completely. The towering ancient trees were no longer dark and eerie, but had started to shine. Their branches and leaves full of fresh green, and wildflowers bloomed everywhere. The forest no longer carried the aura of a haunted place, but had become a vibrant, lively space. The last of the souls ascended into the sky, leaving the dark woods behind. Sarah felt a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. "This place is now for peaceful souls," she said. The group began walking back along the path they had once taken to leave the forest. Though there was relief, in their hearts, there were still indelible marks. The images of Olivia, Mia, and the other souls remained etched in their minds. They knew this journey had changed them forever. "We made it through," Jake said. "But I'll never forget Olivia, Mia, and those souls." The group continued walking toward the rising sun, hoping that they had freed the forest, but they also understood that these memories would follow them for the rest of their lives. As the group left the midnight forest behind, they left a part of their journey, a part of themselves. The memories of the forest, the souls they freed, would never fade from their minds. And although they would never return to that forest, they knew that one day, when light and peace truly spread, they would return to visit Olivia, Mia, and the other souls. After leaving the midnight forest, the group felt much lighter, but the nightmares continued to haunt them. Sarah, in the long nights, still saw images of the forest and the souls, especially Olivia and Mia. One morning, while having breakfast together, Jake stumbled upon an old painting in an antique store in the nearby town. The painting depicted a strange scene, a group of people standing in a forest that looked like midnight, and a dark gate opening. "Look," Jake said, "this is the midnight forest." The group stared intently at the painting. Mia and Sarah noticed details in the painting that they had never seen before. This gate. "I remember it," Sarah whispered. "We saw it in the forest. Didn't we?" Mia nodded. "Yes, we did. And there's something I can't forget. When I stepped into the circle of ancient trees, I felt something very strange. Those unexplainable sensations resurfaced in their minds. As they examined the painting closer, they realized it was the same gate they had crossed in the forest. In the dark of night, the group couldn't sleep. The nightmares began to haunt them again. Sarah, with the necklace Mia had given her, felt something strange in the air around her. Suddenly, she heard the familiar whisper, "Sarah, I'm still here." A chilling feeling overtook her, and she realized that Mia, Olivia, and all the other souls had not truly moved on. Even though the midnight forest had been freed, it seemed a part of it still lingered with them. The next day, the group decided to return to the midnight forest, even though they didn't want to. but the overwhelming feeling of urgency made it impossible to ignore. They realized that only by returning there could they truly free the souls still lingering. "This is what we have to do," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "We will free the last souls." Despite their fear, they knew that this was the only way to end their journey. When the group returned to the midnight forest, they felt as if nothing had changed. Although the forest no longer felt dark and threatening, the strange feelings still lingered. They walked along the old path, and as they approached the gate of the ancient trees, they felt a distinct shift in the air. A light breeze blew, and a voice echoed in their heads. "Thank you for coming back. You have freed us." Every step the group took, they felt the change in the air. The last of the souls ascended into the sky, carrying with them peace and liberation. Sarah felt a sense of relief as she saw the souls rise, freed from the forest and its painful curse. "We've done it," Jake said, his voice filled with relief. "Finally, we've freed everyone." The group turned back toward the path out of the forest, the sunlight streaming over the fields around them. They knew that although they had freed the souls, their story couldn't end just like that. The memories of the midnight forest and the sacrifices of the souls would always follow them. But now, they could begin their lives anew. After leaving the midnight forest, the group returned to their normal lives. But the memories of the forest, of the souls they freed, continued to haunt them. Every time night fell, Sarah dreamed of images of Olivia and Mia. Although the forest no longer posed a threat, Sarah felt that those souls would never completely disappear. There was something lingering in her mind, the whispers from the darkness still echoing in her head. One morning, as Sarah walked to the coffee shop, she noticed something strange. A woman from behind the counter was staring at her intently. The woman had deep, unsettling eyes. As Sarah passed by, the woman suddenly said, "You've freed them, but not all." The words stopped Sarah in her tracks. Her eyes locked onto the woman. But when she turned back, the woman had vanished. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the woman and her warning. Could there still be souls that had not been freed? She turned to Mia and Jake to share her uneasy feelings. Mia, after hearing her, remained silent before speaking. "Perhaps the midnight forest hasn't fully freed everyone. Some souls may still be trapped." Jake nodded, his face filled with concern. "We need to go back. Sarah, we didn't finish the job." The group decided to return to the midnight forest. Though frightened, they knew they couldn't move on without fully resolving the lingering curse. As they returned to the forest's gate, the sunlight no longer shone as before. Instead, darkness enveloped them, and the surrounding space seemed frozen in time. Sarah could sense a distinct difference, as if some invisible force was guarding the forest. As they ventured deeper, they noticed a new path opening up, one unlike any they had encountered before. This path led them to an area they had never seen, a darkened place filled with trees growing on top of each other. These trees had bark as black as coal, and the air around them was heavy, as if the forest was hiding a massive secret. At the center of this area, they found an ancient stone statue. The statue was of a woman, her eyes staring directly at them, and beneath the statue was a stone tablet. At that moment, Mia suddenly realized something. This is where the souls of those not yet freed are imprisoned. The group stood silently, a painful feeling rising in their hearts. They realized they had not completed their task. After realizing that their task was incomplete, the group decided to find a way to free the last soul trapped in the forest. Mia carefully read the inscriptions on the stone tablet and noticed a hidden code. When she spoke the code aloud, a powerful burst of light erupted from the statue, and the souls began to ascend. The group stood there, witnessing the final liberation. The souls that had suffered for so long finally found peace. Sarah felt that their mission was complete. As the light faded, the midnight forest returned to normal. But this time, there was no darkness or danger. The group turned to leave the forest, their hearts lighter, but they knew they would never forget what had happened there. The village of Hallowbrook lay deep within vast forests, far from civilization. There weren't many residents, but those who lived there were close-knit and led a peaceful life. However, there was one strange thing that no one dared acknowledge: the mysterious disappearances that had plagued the village for years. Emily, a young girl who had just moved to Hallowbrook with her family, was unaware of the strange stories surrounding the village. She felt uneasy and out of place when she first arrived, but her mother reassured her that this was a safe and peaceful place to start a new life. After a few days living in Hallowbrook, Emily started to feel that something was odd. One evening, she overheard a conversation between two elderly women in the village, talking about the disappearances that no one could explain. People just disappear, as if they've been sucked into something. One of them said, Curious, Emily decided to begin investigating these disappearances. She went to the small village library to search for materials, but the books about the village's history didn't offer much information. An old, forgotten book on a shelf caught her attention, and she decided to open it. The book recorded strange events in the history of Hallowbrook. Emily discovered that in previous years, the entire village had been haunted by a curse. The missing people all seemed to share a common trait. They were all newcomers to the village, disappearing on moonless nights. Emily couldn't shake off the thoughts of the disappearances. One night, she decided to take a walk around the village, hoping to find a clue. She walked down the road that led to the forest behind the village, a place rarely visited by anyone, and suddenly noticed a strange light flickering in the darkness. She moved closer to the light and realized it was an oil lamp, placed on an old wooden table. Beside the lamp, there was a map with strange notes. The notes recorded different locations in the forest where the missing people had been before they disappeared. Emily began to feel a chill as she realized that all the disappearances were connected to certain areas in the forest. Something strange was happening, and she knew she had to dig deeper. She decided to follow the clues on the map, but as she entered the forest, fear took over her. She walked along winding paths and gradually lost her bearings. Suddenly, she heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned around, and as the light shone into the darkness, she saw a woman standing far from her, wearing a black cloak. The woman didn't speak, only stared at her. Emily couldn't shake off the thoughts of the disappearances. One night, she decided to take a walk around the village, hoping to find a clue. She walked down the road that led to the forest behind the village, a place rarely visited by anyone, and suddenly noticed a strange light flickering in the darkness. She moved closer to the light and realized it was an oil lamp, placed on an old wooden table. Beside the lamp, there was a map with strange notes. The notes recorded different locations in the forest where the missing people had been before they disappeared. Emily began to feel a chill as she realized that all the disappearances were connected to certain areas in the forest. Something strange was happening, and she knew she had to dig deeper. She decided to follow the clues on the map, but as she entered the forest, fear took over her. She walked along winding paths and gradually lost her bearings. Suddenly, she heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned around, and as the light shone into the darkness, she saw a woman standing far from her, wearing a black cloak. The woman didn't speak, only stared at her. The woman approached Emily and whispered, "All those who come here will never return. This is where the souls are trapped, and there's only one way to free them. Break the curse." The woman added, "This curse began from a horrifying event in the past. A ritual where students had to sacrifice their souls. You must stop searching, or you will be the next one." However, Emily didn't give up. She was determined to break the curse and help the trapped souls. She continued searching, facing terrifying trials in the forest. And finally, she found an ancient gate deep in the woods. She opened the gate and stepped inside. The sight before her made her blood run cold. The souls of the students were trapped in wooden planks, their lifeless eyes staring at her in fear. Emily knew she had to release them before it was too late. After freeing the trapped souls, Emily thought she had broken the curse and that the village would return to peace. However, the strange thing was, the village didn't feel as peaceful as she had thought. A heavy feeling still lingered in the air, as if something was still lurking in the shadows. One evening, as Emily was in her room, she heard a soft knock on her door. She opened it, and standing before her was Tom. But he didn't look like his usual self. His face was pale, his eyes filled with confusion. "Lena, have you seen anything strange?" Tom asked. "Huh?" Emily looked into Tom's eyes with concern, realizing that he was hiding something. "What's going on?" she asked. Tom hesitated for a moment, then said, "You won't believe this, but I saw someone watching me from the forest. And I think they want to do something to us." A cold shiver ran down Emily's spine. She and Tom decided to return to the forest, even though they had freed the souls. The feeling that the curse wasn't completely gone still haunted them. They prepared for the next part of their investigation, unaware that an even greater mystery awaited them. Emily and Tom returned to the area of the forest where they had discovered the ancient gate. However, this time, the air around them became thick, and strange sounds echoed from all directions. They felt like an invisible presence was watching their every move. As they approached the gate, a scream echoed from behind them, startling both of them. They turned around, but saw no one. The gate opened automatically, as if someone was inviting them in. Emily and Tom had no choice but to step inside. Both of them stepped inside, and immediately, they felt like they were being transported into another realm. The room was vast, with stone walls, a high ceiling, and a large table in the center. On the table was an ancient book, along with strange items they couldn't identify. Emily moved closer to the table, opened the book, and saw strange, unreadable text. However, one short sentence became clear. Those who come will pay the price to gain freedom. She sensed that something dangerous was about to happen. Finally, Emily and Tom realized that to free all the trapped souls in the village, they had to complete the ancient ritual mentioned in the book. They needed to sacrifice a soul to break the curse, and Emily knew that she had to be the one to sacrifice. Emily looked into Tom's eyes, and with a faint smile, she said, "This is the only way to free everyone. You'll be fine, Tom." Tom was speechless, but he nodded, accepting Emily's decision. As the ritual began, a powerful light engulfed the room, and Emily felt all the trapped souls finally being freed. The village gradually returned to peace, but Emily would forever remain a part of those souls. The entire village of Hallowbrook became eerily quiet after the ritual was completed. Emily had sacrificed herself, but something strange happened. She didn't vanish. Instead, she felt an unusual presence within herself, as if her soul remained in the village. Emily realized that she could still feel the presence of the souls she had freed, but now they were no longer trapped. They had left this place, and the village had been freed from the curse. However, there was one strange thing. Emily could not leave the village. Even though the village had been freed, Emily began to feel trapped in a strange loop. She walked through familiar paths, but couldn't find the exit. Hallowbrook seemed to have changed, becoming a place that she could not leave. Emily's determination never wavered. She knew that she had to find a way to break this loop. One night, she decided to find the ancient gate where everything had begun, the place that had played a crucial role in trapping the souls. Emily returned to the ancient gate, where the memories of the village had changed forever. She felt the presence of a dark force lurking within, as if the souls she had freed had not truly left. She stepped closer to the gate and began to feel a cold draft emanating from within. A sense of fear rose within her as the gate began to open slowly, as if inviting her to step inside. As Emily stepped through the gate, she found herself back in a misty space, where the souls that hadn't been freed were still lingering. Suddenly, she saw a familiar figure. It was Lucas, her classmate, who had disappeared earlier. Lucas looked at her with sad eyes. "Emily, you've come too late," he said. "We cannot escape. This is where all souls are trapped." Emily felt a pang of sorrow as she realized that Lucas could not be freed. Emily refused to give up. She decided to find a way to completely break this loop. She found an ancient book that contained the final instructions, a clue that only when a soul fully sacrificed itself, the gate would close forever. Emily understood that to stop everything, she had to sacrifice herself. She stood before the gate, determined to finish what she had started. "Only when I leave will the village be freed," she whispered. The gate began to close slowly, and Emily felt her soul fading. a brilliant light erupted, and finally, Hallowbrook was freed. Emily's soul, along with the others, was released, and the gate closed forever. The gate finally closed, and the light from it shone brightly. As everything faded into the darkness, Emily felt a sense of relief, as if the burdens, the souls, and the unanswered questions were no longer there. She saw Hallowbrook in a completely different light, peaceful, serene, and full of life. Emily felt a gentle breeze blow across her face, bringing with it the freedom she had given to the village. The souls were freed, and they were no longer trapped in the village or in the darkness. Emily knew that, even though she had left. Her sacrifice had made a permanent change for all. In the final moment, Emily felt as though she were in an eternal space. This space had no time, only absolute peace and tranquility. She saw the freed souls, smiling at her, as if thanking her for giving them the chance to be free. Though Emily's soul was no longer in the village, she knew she had completed her mission. The village of Hallowbrook was freed from the curse, and from now on, it would no longer be a place of darkness and fear. The people would live peaceful lives, no longer worrying about the disappearances. The story of Emily and the freed souls would live on in the memories of the people of Hallowbrook. They would always remember her sacrifice and courage, the one who helped them escape the darkness. And so, the village would forever live in the light, never haunted by its dark past. See ya.